Okay, so welcome everybody to
Hello.
episode 21.
21, yeah.
It's a good number.
Yeah, it's a great number. Subscribe to our channel, please.
We have Hayley with us today,
You do.
legend.
I'm
If
working
you,
on
don't, if you don't know Hayley, Hayley played for McQueen, and now she's playing for Pop Evil. Amazing. And I mean, I've known you a few years,
Oh yeah. It must
but
be nearly 10-ish.
for a long time.
Getting there.
But I don't know about how you got into drumming and if you had lessons and that story.
Yeah, so I my older brother is a drummer, and my father is a bass player. And by no means they didn't expect me to go into drumming. And I tried lots of different instruments beforehand. But as soon as I kind of sat behind a kit, like nothing else mattered. It was like tunnel vision. This is what I'm supposed to do. This feels great. Done deal. Yeah, so I've kind of gone about my life like that. No plan B, which sometimes, I've sort of regretted. But, you just have to, keep on keeping on, and that's the driving force. It's just a passion that I didn't really expect to turn up, but that's what happened as soon as I picked up those sticks and sat behind the kit.
How old were you?
I was 12 when that happened, so kind of a late starter. I mean, I teach kids like that are little uns really, and they sort of got the opportunity sooner or found it sooner. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad in a way that I didn't do it as a really young kid. I did the piano and so I had a sort of grounding in other instruments. So as far as sort of picking up learning to read and things, that was easier because of doing the piano. But yeah, 12 years old, so 25 years later, here I am. Yeah.
And were you a kind of player that, did you have lessons straight away? Or were you just self-taught?
No, I didn't. I think, I had music lessons in piano and singing, and drums just kind of came naturally. I didn't feel like I necessarily wanted lessons. I was just really happy. My brother sort of taught me the basics. So we did a quarter note beat, an 8-beat, a shuffle, a swing, a 12/8, and it's like, yeah, I can do that. Cool. I understand this, So I never kind of felt the need to seek out a teacher at that point. I just went through the radio stations, and if there was music that I hadn't heard before, I was like, oh, what's that? I'll just try playing along to it. And that kind of worked for me. I think doing the grades and things for piano, I found quite stressful. And I didn't want that in my drum life. I wanted a bit more freedom. And then I sort of finished high school, got straight into gigging, and was loving it for a time, being a pro drummer, getting out there. But then I reached a point, I was like, hang on a minute, I want to learn more. And that's when I sort of went and specifically studied drums at BIM for a year. And I'm so glad I did that, because it just sort of, it tweaked everything that I'd been working on myself. It just gave me that opportunity to really kind of fine tune technique, how I was sitting, posture. So that I was glad I did that.
Awesome.
Do you still sing? Do you still sing? Do you still sing in the band?
I do sing secretly to myself, and occasionally do backing vocals in the studio. But I get terribly nervous about it live, so I kind of just leave that. But I've never felt any nerves with drums. It's just sort of pure enjoyment. I feel nervous about a show, about everything to do with the show. So apprehensive, is it going to go well? are the lighting cues going to be right? Is the, you know, the track's going to work? You know, are my drums going to fall apart? You know, I worry about things like that, but I don't actually worry about my playing. You know, if I make a mistake, I'll get over it, you know. So yeah, that's.
I love that. Like, that's an awesome way to be, like having that inner confidence about your drumming, and just that's like solid foundation, right? Because this is what I was going to ask you about, you know, when you got the gig with Pop Evil, I've read that you were playing sound check, and then one day they were like, all right,
Yeah.
you know, it's over to you. And you know, I always, when I'm reading things, I put myself in that situation, and I was like, oh, that's massive. How would you, you know, how did you deal with that? Was there much pressure? But then if you know, if you don't get nervous, was it just like, yes, bring it on? How was that transition mentally?
I think it was quite a nerve-wracking situation, because for the first time ever, I was going for a job where I wasn't friends with any of the guys beforehand. We didn't even have any friends in common on Facebook or anything like that. It was just, I went for the job and I got offered the opportunity to try out for the job. So that it was building relationships as well as perfecting the drum parts. So that was the kind of nerve-wracking thing. And you know, yes, I was playing sound checks. I was immediately on a bus with them. I wasn't in rehearsal rooms or just going out and hanging out at the pub or, you know, it wasn't sort of, you didn't have that to kind of fall back on. So all the relationships were starting to be built within, that short window of time that is sound check. And on a tour bus, which is, you know, you've got 10 to 12 people in a very small space. So everything is under a microscope, you know, your every move, you know. So yeah, it was a daunting thing, but it was a lot of fun as well. I felt really proud of myself for just throwing myself into the deep end, really, just taking a chance, getting on a plane and going, you know. And now they're my absolute best buddies. It's like we've known each other for years, but thinking back to beforehand, it was, that was far out.
Yes, it's nuts.
But I guess
and you know, look, you've got the original drummer watching your every move as well, you know, so it's like, I'm like, is this okay?
Oh,
Like, yeah.
that's one question I have for you. How did you feel knowing that the other drummer? Because usually when we join a band, it's because regardless of the instrument, when we join a band, it's because the member has already left, and you joined the band where the member was still there. So how was that feeling?
Yeah. Not only was he a great drummer, he was a larger than life character as well, and really, really loved by the fans. And that's daunting. You know, I knew how much he was loved. But I also knew that they were possibly going to employ me because I'm a big character as well. So it's, you kind of have to, even though it's hard to do this, you kind of have to believe in you. You know, I never tried to be him. It was, I had to be myself. And it was either going to work or not. You know, I kind of went there, you know, I'm either going to stay there for 3 or 4 months, or I'm going to be on a plane in 2 weeks. You know, it's, you just, it is weird though to find that confidence to just be you. And I think I try to bring that to all of my teaching. I don't want to make loads of robots of myself. I want to encourage kids, teenagers, even adults that come to me to find their personality, to be comfortable, to be themselves, to let go, to not overthink exercises and you have to get it absolutely regimented. It's having your own feel, because ultimately that's what gets you a job. You know, if I sounded exactly the same as, say, Dave Weckl, that's useless, because there's already a Dave Weckl.
Exactly.
You know, even though I'd love to be able to play to the standard of Dave Weckl.
Yeah. Well,
but,
that's different. Playing at his standard and being like him are two completely different things.
Yeah.
You know, and people who like Dave Weckl, they will hire Dave Weckl, not somebody,
Yes.
not an impersonator.
Exactly. So I think that's really important when teaching. It's, you know, you have to obviously teach technique, and, you know, if they want to do grades, you know, and if they want to play along to the Chili Peppers, you know, but there comes a point you don't want to be Chad Smith. It's, you know, find you in those drum parts as well. That's the fun of it. It's, who knows what the future of drumming is? You know, it's in their hands, and it's up to us to inspire them and give them the confidence to go and be themselves, you know?
And usually the person who's different is the one who gets the jobs. That's the thing. I watched an interview with a very famous metal drummer from the 80s. And then he said that his first job was because he was different, not because he was the best. He went to the audition, he saw drummers that were a lot better than him, and then he got the job, and he asked, how come? And they said, because you were different.
Yeah. It's everybody plays just slightly differently. Everybody has just a slightly different swagger, you know, and ultimately it's what's right for the band, or what's right for the session, or what's right for the song.
Sometimes what's wrong for the band.
Oh, yeah. But I think you have to be aware of that when you're, whether you're going into a session or going to audition for a band. You have to listen to the vibe of the room, the energy of the people. I know that sounds a bit sort of far out and wacky, but it's just as important as learning all the notes. You know, really try to sort of lock in with people when you're playing along. Don't just think, oh yeah, I know how this song goes, I know all the notes, I know I can play it in time. That's not enough. You really have to sort of give that thing you can't see, you can't put it into words, but you just have to sort of open your soul to sort of connect with the people that you're in the room with.
And that's why I think it's so important to go to jam nights, because you're going to be playing with different people, and instantly you need to understand what is it that person's trying to do. And as a drummer, because the thing is, a guitarist, if you're going to a rock blues jam, the guitarist is the lead instrument. So everybody else has to follow what the guitarist is doing. And as a drummer, especially, so that's very important to understand what is it that the song, the kind of music you're playing. And that's something that you cannot teach.
Yeah. And you know, I do feel very blessed that my father is a bass player and my brother's a drummer, because even though I wasn't getting lessons when I was learning, I was still having the opportunity to actually play with musicians. You know, I'd sort of jump in the drum seat with my dad's band. I'd sort of, you know, when I went to see my brother, I'd go and jam with his band. And, you know, it's just so important, just as much as getting lessons.
True.
For sure. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you about the album you recorded.
Yeah.
People. How was that? Like,
okay,
weren't you writing it on the road? And
well, the one that's out fully now, yes, that was sort of written in bits and pieces on the road. And we had an amazing experience. We recorded it at a studio called Sound Emporium in Nashville. That was just awesome, you know. And also, I'd only been in the band like maybe a year and a half, 2 years at that point. So that was pretty cool. But you know, the good thing for me in that we worked with a different producer that they hadn't worked with before. So it wasn't just me that was new, the producer was new as well. So it was kind of Pop Evil felt like they hadn't made the album of their sound, the sound that they wanted to capture until that point. So, and I'm not trying to sort of big myself up, but they said that when I joined the band, they felt like they were sounding how they wanted to sound, you know. So
Cool.
that's what they wanted to capture. And, you know, in a way, yeah, that kind of patted me on the back, but it also kind of put a weight on my shoulders. I was like, hang on a minute, whew, that's quite a lot of pressure. I've got to deliver in the studio here. So that was a really cool experience. And then the first single off of that went to #1.
Yes.
Mainstream.
Congrats.
So that was mega for me. I was like, oh my goodness, like, wow. And then the follow-up singles did pretty well too. I think one of them went top 10. So that was a really good experience. And then, so we toured that album for about 2.5 years. That was a long slog, and by the end of that, the whole band was so tired. I mean, Pop Evil's been going 12 years, and they've been relentless. They just haven't stopped, and they just got to a point where, like, you know what, we need a break. So that was October last year, and everyone was celebrating. Yeah, we're going to take a break for the first time. Okay, so anyway, we took a break, and then we went and recorded another album. But it was a very low stress. It wasn't sort of like going into the studio for 2 months. It was just sort of, we all went in bits and pieces, and it was done still recuperating, still trying to energize ourselves and not overdo it and give ourselves a break. It was such an enjoyable experience, this next album coming up. I got to go into 606 and hang out in Foo Fighters land. So, and you know, you go into a studio that's kind of Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins everywhere, you know you're going to get a great drum sound. And immediately sort of set up the kit. It's like, yep, that sounds great. This room is amazing. So that was really cool, and I'm very excited. I don't know when the album's going to come out, or even if we're going to release it as a full album soon. I think we're kind of doing more kind of in smaller chunks to get kind of the longevity, really. And especially now we've gone into lockdown, it's sort of, you want to get length out of everything as much as possible, because we don't know when we're going to be back out on the road. So I'm just super grateful that we managed to get the album recorded before I had to come home. I mean, it was right up to the wire. I like raced the last track to get an earlier flight home so I could get home.
Wow.
So yeah, you know, it's been a really cool experience, both albums.
Cool.
Very different.
And how was the writing process? Is it a band effort, or somebody brings a song?
Yeah, it's song by song basis, really. It can come from me and the bass player having a jam, or it can come from the guitarist, or it can come from the singer. Singer works with different songwriters as well. So it's a very kind of open pool of, it's just the best songs win, basically.
Okay,
you know, we all bring ideas to the plate, and if the band kind of jumps on one and goes, yeah, I get that, let's work on that, then that's what we do. But yeah, we're all writing sort of constantly, bits and pieces as we go.
Cool.
Wow. I wanted to ask about touring. I mean, you know, you've had a hectic schedule there, and mental health. How do you prepare? Do you have, like, you seem like really, I don't know, switched on anyway, in terms of positive self-talk, you know, self-care and things like that. But do you have like any habits that you formed while on tour to, you know, keep the energy up?
Yeah, it's mental health is a tough one. I feel like because I'm such a sort of perfectionist and driven, and I've always like, you know, the self-employed, you've got to keep working, and actually it can be detrimental to your mental health, that kind of, you don't give yourself a break. And I said about the band taking a break in October, and I'm so glad that we did take a break, because I was feeling close to burnout. I wasn't feeling happy or inspired, or, you know, something changed. I've ended up getting an even longer break than I expected, but I'm kind of glad that lockdown happened, in a way. I feel like I really needed it. I needed to stop. And at the beginning, I was sort of worried about, oh yeah, I've got to get back to work, got to get back. And then I reached a point, no, actually, I don't need to get back to work. I need to actually take some time for myself. And just, you know, look back on what I've achieved. Where do I want to go from here? You know, because when you're in the rat race of gig after gig, tour after tour, you kind of get this weird thing. It's like, is this the direction I want to go? Am I doing this right? Is this right for me? You know, and you need moments to just stop. But yeah, as far as like getting ready on the road and getting show like pumped, I find that I take quite a lot of naps on tour, and some people might think that's lazy, but I really perfected the power nap before stage. Like 2 hours before stage, I would eat my dinner and then take myself for a very short nap, like maximum 30 minutes. Get up, have a coffee, and start doing my makeup. And that was the kind of, you know, the ritual. If I had napped right up until stage time, I wouldn't have enough time to come round. I kind of perfected the timings of everything. And I'd eaten my dinner 2 hours early, so I wasn't sluggish when I got to stage. And then the other random thing that really puts me in show zone is the smell of hairspray and perfume. I don't know, like, I don't need to put on perfume, but because nobody's going to be around me really, and I'm going to sweat and stink, whatever. But it was just this kind of, it made me feel good, and it made me suddenly just sort of transform into this, you know, stand up straight and get ready to take on the world. You know, if I didn't do that, I'd just feel like a normal person wandering onto the stage. You know, I needed to shift my brain from chilling out to going out. You know, it's the same as going out with your mates. You want to make yourself feel good. So yeah, so then, and obviously warming up, side of the stage, stretches, and you know, it's nothing complex in a warm-up. It's doubles and singles and paradiddles and just getting the blood flowing. You know, if it was over complex, that would take my mind away from the show. You know, over complex is when you've got your practice time, but a warm-up is very basic, very basic. It doesn't need to be 1,000,000 miles an hour either. It's just get everything moving, and it's almost that sort of monotonous thing kind of it's like a zone. So yeah, I often think like I do have a bit of a complex about being a female musician sometimes in a male dominated world, when there's other male drummers around and they see me doing my warm-up and it's really boring and basic. I know that I just think they're walking past going, oh, she's rubbish. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, but I try to fight the thing, you know, you don't need to show up, just you know, but that does go through my head. You know, sorry to bring up the girl drummer thing, but I think it's
important to
bring it up.
to mention, yeah.
Yeah, especially like I've been judging the Hit Like a Girl contest for a couple of years. And even in those couple of years, I've seen the difference in the amount of drummers submitting their entries, and the standard. It's like a totally different world. And I'm so excited about it, because I hope that those young female drummers that I'm seeing, I hope they don't have the same feelings and thoughts that I do when I'm on the road. Every sound check, you say that the stress of auditioning in a sound check, I still feel a stress at sound check, even though I'm not auditioning. If I'm in a venue and there's the bar staff and the security staff, because I'm a girl, they just stop in their tracks and stare, or they get their phone out and film it like they've never seen a girl drummer before. And then I just feel like they're judging, or what are they
Actually,
looking?
it's the opposite. They're admiring because they haven't seen a girl drummer before in a stage that big, unfortunately. It's still a rarity. It still is.
Sorry.
It's still a rarity.
Yeah. And then the sort of pressure comes on your shoulders, and you're like, oh, I've got to play really great, because I've got to give them a good impression so they can go ahead and think that girls can play drums. Yeah, it's the whole mind games of the female musician. There's so many sort of subtleties underneath that you feel regularly. I just hope that girls that are starting to play drums now won't feel that down the line. I don't think they will. I think we are getting close to it becoming more acceptable.
Cool. Now I would like to touch on something that you mentioned, because you said that there are the moments where you think, is this the right direction? Is this what I want to do? Is this where I want to go? How are you feeling right now? Is this the right direction? Is this what you want to do? Would you change it completely?
I'm very excited about the next album. I'm very excited about touring the next album. But I think there's more that I want to do. And I when I was learning to play drums, I was playing so many different styles. And I've made my career in rock, and I'm very blessed, and I feel so grateful to have done that. But there's so many other things that I love playing. So I think, this lockdown has kind of really opened the doors in my mind that actually I think there's side projects I want to do. There's different styles that I want to go down, and it's not to have a career in it as such. I just feel like there's sides of me that are not being attended to, just for my own happiness. So yeah, and as I said about stopping, don't go to burnout stage, because you can't tend to every side of yourself then, that you're just literally working constantly for that paycheck or the next like on Instagram, but it's just you're not thinking clearly. You're thinking about it as a business, and that's not why I started playing drums. I started playing drums because I enjoy it.
But the business side is inevitable. You have to.
Oh, absolutely. You have to tend to it, and more so than ever, I think, because of social media and Instagram, Facebook. When it was sort of a newspaper article once a week, or it's done by somebody else. Now the power is in your hands, really, and that's a side that needs to be kept in check. You need to do enough to be present, but don't overdo it. Don't have it be the first thing you do when you open your eyes in the morning. I fell into that category. I had to delete the apps for a while because it's not healthy. But it is a very useful tool.
It is. Kira, we have 8.5 minutes.
Oh.
Okay. Let's just go to our final question, and if we have any more time, I might ask something else.
Okay.
So our final question is always about drumming education, and if you think there's anything missing from drum education today.
Wow. I mean, I'm not necessarily massively in deep into drum education. But what's really sort of what my passion is, and what I try to sort of convey to students, is the future. We don't know what the future of drumming is. If you think back to how the drums were invented, okay, it's a tree trunk with an animal skin stretched over it, and then maybe multiple drums, and then cymbals came in, and then the modern drum kit was born. But then you listen to a drum kit that was Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa, it sounds very different to the drums that occurred in the 70s, 80s and 90s. Then the electronics came in. Now we're experiencing, I think, another change. I don't know what that's going to be yet, but the conventional way of playing, sorry, I may be going in a really long way around this, right. But just like basic things like, there was a lad when I was at school, he was playing drums in a house up the road from me, and a teacher had told him he had to play a right-handed kit, even though he was left-handed. So he was like, it doesn't feel right to play like. So I was like, well, try maybe like open hands, or just try playing in a different way. And I think teaching should be the same as that kind of thing, but more so now, because we've got electronics, we've got stack cymbals, we've got all different sounds, all different ear candy. That's what I want students to think about, as well as the notes and the grades but think about how you want to change the drum kit. You don't have to just play a normal drum kit. What if you want to move that drum to over there? And what if you want to add a saucepan on there, and you want to add this electronic sound here, and whatever, who knows what the next modern drum kit is going to look like. And that's what I want to see sort of come into education. Maybe it already is in education. I don't know.
No, it's not.
I mean, you could go completely far out on this. I was watching a program the other day about, brains being hooked up and being able to control computers and control things. Well, what happens if you maybe connect your brain and you can set off a loop at the same time as playing here? Who knows? And I just want kids to their minds just to be open, not set in stone. This is how you have to play. Yes, learn technique, that's good. But the creative side of things, really go for it. I think we should really push it, because music is going in that direction. There's not so much of your standard live rock blues, there's there aren't the venues out there that there used to be. I remember as a teenager walking down a high street and you'd hear live music from every pub. Don't hear that now.
No.
It's a different world, so we have to think differently, and we have to encourage the next generation to really open their minds and adapt. And it's exciting. It's not scary. It's exciting. When electronic drums were invented, drummers were like, "Oh my God, I'm going to be out of a job." Oh no, embrace it. Look what world we're in now. It's amazing. It's so much fun. So yeah, that's what I want in drum education.
Cool.
Yeah.
I never thought God, the drum kit I got in America, I never thought I'd have like 2 bass drums, then an electronic kick pedal next to it, and then trigger on there, and doing all this electronic stuff over here. When I started playing, no, that didn't even come into my head. So yeah, there's so much more out there, and it's awesome. Sorry.
You rock. We don't have that much time, so I guess
we have 3 minutes.
But you did have one more question, and I'm intrigued as to what it is.
Oh, that's a pretty boring one. I don't want to end on it now. It's really boring.
But you can add it differently. You can cut it and then put it before the last one.
I was just going to be geeky and just ask about if you're practicing and what you practice, and just be a bit boring.
Yeah, it differs. It differs. I did. I made a discovery a couple of weeks ago. I went down to see my parents, so that I hadn't seen them for a while, and I found all my old drum books. I've gone back to David Garibaldi, Future Sounds.
Ooh,
That's, I haven't visited that for a while, so that's been fun. And also, I mentioned Dave Weckl earlier. He was kind of the starting point of my playing, and I found these two gems at my parents' place. Hang on.
I really hope their videos.
Yes. yes. And I remember, oh my god, I watched these religiously. I had a little black and white TV in my bedroom, and yeah, it was these two. So I might revisit these. I don't know how I'm gonna watch them. Maybe they're on YouTube or something. But it made me think I need to start revisiting that again.
Oh, love it.
Now I've got the time. Now.
Cool.
But the other stuff, obviously, I've got to still keep all my kind of hard hitting in check as well. And that's more of a struggle in practice world, because I find that larger than life character that happens on stage very hard to find in a rehearsal room on my own. So yeah, and I still haven't quite mastered the trickery in the brain. But one
perfume and hairspray.
Yes, always. But I did discover a bit of equipment that has helped that mindset in the practice room, and that is the Yamaha EAD10.
Yes.
Game changer, absolute game changer, because I can make my practice room in my head sound like an arena, sound like my drums on stage. That never existed in normal practice land before.
True.
I hate to cut you off, but this
Yes,
is going to cut us off.
we need to go.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, God, I could talk for hours. All right. Love you guys.
Thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you. Take care.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too.